Hey there, fellow bass players around the world. Today we're going old school and we're going back to the board. We haven't done that in a while. And we're going to talk about counting out bass lines. And we're going to use two fairly well-known bass lines as examples. But before we do that, let's take a look at the top line over here and go over some basics. Now for starters, we're playing in 4/4 time. And that means there's going to be 4 quarter notes to a measure. And quarter notes get 1 beat. So we're going to count this 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are 4 beats to a measure. We have 4 quarter notes. We counted 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to be playing to a metronome. Okay, so when we start our metronome, you're going to hear the clicks. And you should get into the habit of tapping your foot to the click. So let's make believe my hand is the floor and the magic marker is your foot. You want to count 1, 2, 3, 4. So every time your foot comes down and hits the floor, that'll be counted as a beat, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Fairly simple stuff. All right. So now let's move on to the second measure. The second measure, we have eighth notes. Now, eighth notes get half a beat. So we're going to count this 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right. And again, when we tap our foot, we're going to count 1. And then our foot comes up, we're going to count n. So we're counting in between the beats. So it's going to be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right. So now let me just start up the metronome and I'll grab my bass and we'll play that top line together. Now let's play that top line along with the metronome. We're only going to be playing a C, so that's the only note you have to worry about. We have 1 measure of quarter notes followed by 1 measure of eighth notes. Now remember to tap your foot to the click. I have the metronome set at 100 beats per minute. Okay, now let's move on to the first example. And for the first example, we're going to be playing the main bass riff to Bon Jovi's Living on a Prayer. So let me let you hear what that sounds like. We're going to tap our foot. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's what it sounds like. Now when I'm figuring out how to count out a bass line, I like to count out eighth notes, right? So I'll be counting and tapping with my foot 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and ba 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 ba. So this first one is easy because all he's playing is eighth notes. All right. So I'm going to count it 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right. Now, if this is a little tricky for you, let me just write the notes out. So we have low E, octave E, B, and then D, and then E, low E, B, D, and then it just repeats. Okay? So let's play it to a metronome. Let me bump up the tempo. We'll bump that up to 120 beats per minute. Let's give it a shot. We'll loop it a couple of times. One and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Simple, right? Okay. Now let's move on to the second example, which is a little bit trickier. For example 2, we're going to be playing another famous bass line. We're going to be playing the main bass riff to Under the Boardwalk. Now, I'll turn on the metronome and let you hear what that sounds like. All right, so this one is a little bit trickier, but we're going to use the same method. We're going to be using eighth notes to count it out. So let's just give that a little listen. Tap our foot. All right, so let's just get the first two notes. All right, so we have ba, ba. So the first note's on the one, ba, ba. And then it's on the 1 and 2 N. Second note is on the 2 N. So I'm going to come over to the board over here. And you see the first note we have a dotted quarter note. And a dotted quarter note gets a beat and a half. So we're going to count this 1 and 2. And then when we get to the eighth note, we're going to put the N there. Right? So that'll sound like this. One, turn up my volume, that would help, right? 1 and 2 N, 1 and 2 N, right? 1 and 2 N, 3, right? So now this third note over here, we have a quarter note. So it's going to be 3, and then we have N, 4N. We have another quarter note. So that's how we're going to count that first measure out. Okay, now let me just give you the notes so you know what notes to play. So this first note is a G. We have a B, a D, and then a low D. All right. So now let's count this measure out slow and play it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 N, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 N. Then we come to the second measure. And let me just give you the notes here. This is a G and this is a B. Now, you can see both of these are dotted quarter notes. So again, they get a beat and a half. So this is going to be 1 and 2. Then we're over here. And 3 N. And then we have a quarter rest, 4 N. So here we don't play anything. Okay, now let's just play this measure right here. We're going to be playing a G and a B, and we have dotted quarter notes. So it's going to be 1 and 2, and then we grab the B on N3, N, and then we rest on 4. So it's going to sound like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 N. I'll do it again: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 N. Don't forget this rest right here. Now, before we play the whole thing with the metronome, let's just clap it out, right? So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and G, B, D, D, G, B, G, B, D, D, G, B. All right. Let's try it with the metronome. All right, so it's fairly simple, and I find the best way to count it out is by using eighth notes and then just breaking it down just as we did. Now remember, when you're counting out bass lines, it's best to slow it down, count out eighth notes, and sing the bass line as you're counting, just like we did in this lesson. I find that's the best way to break down a bass line. Now, if you enjoyed this lesson, please give a thumbs up, please subscribe. And if you'd like private lessons with me, visit stevekonbass.com and just send me an email. Happy bass playing. I'll catch you next time.